I think we get like 2 views on YouTube. Your residual check should be up through the roof.
Okay, well, are we ready now?
Yeah, we're good. Hold on, let's close it on my end so it doesn't double up. All right, you're ready to go. You might want to just give a little primer just because we do have a member from the public here as to
Sure.
who we are and what we do and the process of engaging with us.
Sure. So welcome to Manhattan Community Board 4's Budget Task Force meeting. This is an opportunity for us to reflect and prepare our statement of district needs and our specific requests regarding both programmatic or capital and expense budgets that we will be submitting to the city following our November board meeting. And represented here are folks who have been engaged with their committees. Many have leadership responsibilities overseeing the committees of CB4 and others who have joined to help shape this process. And we'll have a robust discussion, and hopefully we'll have a chance to also hear from folks who maybe hear from the community as we work to move forward in preparing these recommendations. So with that, we have really two primary tasks at hand for today. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. 2 primary tasks at hand for today. One is I would like for us to be able to review our statement of district needs and just have a chance to reflect on that, seeing as this is sort of the document which guides our more specific requests. And get everyone on this call's sense, both as budget task force members, but also as committee chairs and people who've been on conversations with committees and with perhaps agencies and others in the district about what they're seeing as a pressing need right now. So hopefully, oh, yes, Dolores.
Hi, I just wanted to mention that I think that what's really tough is that it's obvious, we're going to have a new administration. There's all sorts of changes that are happening. But I think it's real important, especially for those in the northern part of our broader district, to recognize that our top priorities really need to be around safety, health and human services, and those types of issues. I think, Alan, I know that you have a good number of your members that are here. Jeffrey, you're representing waterfront in the broader community, but I think that if we have our top priorities, some of the things that have been up there for a long time that are more environment, et cetera, we're going to lose an opportunity with the new administration to really tackle some concerns that I think can be crippling, especially for the northern part of the district. So I just wanted to at least come out with that, because I know that people are probably feeling different things around the community. I know towards the south, it actually feels rather pleasant and a nice area, but up here in parts of the north, it's uncomfortable. And I think that we need to make sure that the incoming administration really understands some of this budget really needs to focus on tackling those issues. So I just wanted to make that statement.
Okay, so I see you, Bert. I'm just going to say one thing, which is if we dive in, as we will, to the statement of district needs, I want to remind everyone, hopefully people can do a kind of 2-screen or see it there in front of them. But our priorities last year were affordable housing, neighborhood preservation, traffic, and air quality. But when actually it's interesting because now with hindsight and the ability to take a step back and look at it, when I look at for example, our capital requests, which obviously are different than our expense requests, but the top, really almost the top 10 are dominated by issues related to housing and some education in there. And so housing and security are not the same, and certainly not quality of life. Like I think maybe Dolores, you're referring to a lot of the discussions that have happened at both HHHS and ACES and at board meetings more broadly. But, it's just this balance of making sure that the narrative matches the requests. And that's something I'd like for us to be sure to take a good look at as we move forward. But before we look specifically at that language, Bert, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I generally agree with Dolores, and we do have to take into account we're having a new administration. And I, though, would rather us describe the northern part of the district as Hell's Kitchen, and the southern part of the district as Chelsea. And I think maybe not to the same intensity, but Chelsea does share some of the same security issues and what we call it, street safety issues as Hell's Kitchen does.
Okay, we will be sure to note that.
Yeah, Bert, I didn't mean that you're not experiencing it. It's just, it's been really cute in the 30s, the high 30s and the
Oh, I
40s.
said you have it maybe experiencing more intense.
Yeah, and
But I also
and
was
our-
wondering
our-
why you
our-
had northern rather than, and southern rather than Hell's Kitchen and Chelsea.
yeah, so it's that middle portion there that's sort of sometimes undefined. That's why I meant more northern.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah.
The upper
That-
30s, the upper
Yeah.
30s. Okay.
Great. So
Well, I think it's going to be, Jessica, may I speak?
please, yes, sorry, Christina.
I think it's going to be important to identify the priorities in our lists, and justify them. And that should come up this way.
Yeah, so I'm hoping we can spend a few minutes right now among us. I know Zoom is not the most conducive, but here we are. And so if you look on section 4 of, I think it's page 8 of the Statement of District Needs, it outlines the three, we identify here, the three most pressing issues, again, affordable housing, land use trends, and traffic. The issue that Dolores raises of security is and the streetlight issues, I think, are we attempted to allude to some of them as it related to the need for affordable housing, but that's not actually the solve that I think we know the district needs. So I want to leave space for either discussing, do we broaden these categories? Do we add to them? What does that look like? Alan.
Thank you. In terms of adding them, I had requested that last year, but I think we're limited on this page to 3 priorities. And just so happens, I mentioned this last year in terms of making education as one of our priorities, and that didn't happen. And looking at the 3 that we have here, the first 2, affordable housing and land use, somewhat overlap a little bit. Okay, so I was going to suggest, since it's been brought up, I'll bring it up now, that maybe we could combine these 2, right, and add another priority. And I think education at this point in time, considering what school systems and the students have gone through last year, what they're looking at this year, I think we need to set the record straight that education for our students is a primary issue for people to live in the city, send their kids to public schools in the city, and be safe in the city also. Thank you.
Okay. We hear that, Leslie?
To jump off of what Alan said, I think if we go one step back from that, I think we should make a statement, a broader statement. Our community and our CB is going to be involved in 2 important sites. That's not related to this budget, but it's DEP and MTA sites. And I think we should have language where we do want to concentrate on working class income housing. We say affordable housing, affordable housing, affordable housing. It's very broad. It's kind of undefined sometimes. AMI bands change. I think we should be specific and say that our families are leaving, to what Alan said about education, for a number of reasons, but we are losing a lot of our middle income and working class, and then that low, high income, that lower, in between that lower and middle income band. And I would suggest that that should be a priority, that just to focus on that and to have the new administration understand that that is important to us as well.
Okay, last year, obviously, we did a big piece on COVID, just if anybody's looking at the document further up, being that it was our first opportunity to really, I think, speak about that.
Jessica, I'm sorry to interrupt. I feel like an idiot because I'm in the Dropbox and I had gone through all this stuff, but is the statement of district needs not in the Dropbox?
No, Jesse sent it in a separate email with, I think it's password protected.
That's right. That was the Microsoft one, right, Jesse, or something?
Yeah, that's just allowed you guys to edit it. You should have a PDF of it already though in the folder that I sent you. It's also on our website, but I can
Okay.
double check that it's in the folder.
Sorry, I was just feeling dumb. Apologies for the interruption.
Not at all. Anyway, I think though that Leslie, some of that language and the sort of the description of what we're experiencing in the district as distinct from a specific ask or what it means for, and that, like the rubric that the ask sits under, could go under that. I guess it's earlier on page in section 3, describing some of the challenges that we're seeing in the district related to the loss of these working class families or individuals. And then when we have other requests that tie to that, we should make a point to call that out. Whether that's adjusting AMI or things of that nature, or school related, et cetera. Jesse, can you just confirm for me? I think you nodded. We are limited to 3 priorities. Is that right?
For the top 3, you are limited to top 3 priorities. Yes, you then can comment on as many others, but in terms of your top 3, that's what you are limited to.
And what do folks feel about Alan's suggestion in terms of combining land use and affordable housing? We do have some big land use trends happening in the district right now. Yes, Jeffrey.
I don't know that they can be combined because doesn't the city set these, the city sets these categories, unfortunately. I see our first 2 priorities last year as being counter to one success over the other. Neighborhood preservation, often stymies development, and in particular, affordable housing development. And so I think we need to have a really tough discussion, whether it's here or in a wider way, of what's valid. So I see neighborhood preservation as one that could go away this year, and we keep our affordable housing priority as number 1. I think that is maybe as long as this board has existed, it probably has been in our priority mix, and I would assume it wouldn't go away either. I fall in sort of the Dolores side of things of public safety, being very much in the mix, regardless of where you are in the community district. I think it's important, especially in light of the new administration, and just having it known that we're be aware. And then of course, I'm sure it's a surprise to nobody that I feel strongly that traffic and air pollution are daily problems in our district. And so that's where I would sort of land on our top 3 right now.
Thank you for that clarification and that suggestion. Maria and then Bert.
I was going to say, actually, what Alan suggested is something I was thinking about as well. And my understanding is that can't be done, because I was thinking affordable housing and land use trends or preservation could be as one priority, but that we can't do that. And I am more in line or more aligned with what Dolores and Jeffrey said. I do think that affordable housing obviously should be one. Just thinking about issues that keep coming up a lot in the community, and not just because I'm the co-chair of Housing, Health, and Human Services, but thinking about what I'm hearing my neighbors say and talk about and the concerns that they have. Something that comes up a lot is homelessness, people with serious mental health issues, public safety issues, and sanitation issues in the district. So I'm not sure which should be what, but I think those are the issues that I keep hearing about, and probably many people care more about in the community. Maybe that's not the right way to frame it. And Jessica, I mentioned to you, but you said that survey that we did, that was for last year, not this budget cycle, which I didn't remember that, but I remember what the priorities were at that time for constituents in the community. And it was similar to what some of the things that we're talking about right now.
Great, thank you. Bert, Sabrina, and then Sabrina, excuse me.
Yeah, I generally agree with Jeffrey. I don't think, regardless of what the city says, I don't think we should couple affordable housing with land use. Completely two different. I mean, there's a lot of land use issues that have nothing to do with housing in the district. The way the district is situated, particularly in the northern part of the district, but now in other parts of the district, south of the northern part of the district, there is conflict in land use between commercial development and residential development. In Hell's Kitchen, you know, development for people who live outside the district and development for people who live within the district. This is major land use conflict, has nothing to do necessarily with housing. I do like Leslie's introduction, and I think it's the first time I've heard it, calling a spade a spade. Let's not call it affordable housing. Let's call it working class housing, because that's part of what we're really talking about. That 14th Street to 59th Street here on the west side go back 50, 60 years, had a very strong working class component. And that working class component has shrunk, and for lots of different reasons, some benevolent, some not. Some is push, some is pull. But that working class part of our district, that demographic, has been diminished and diminished and diminished. And affordable housing is one way to go about supporting whatever working class is left and maybe bringing more working class back into the district. I think public safety is up there as one of our, should be up there as one of our priorities. It may be only temporarily for this 1 year, 2 year, 3 year time period, but that's where we are right now. And I think it should be important. And it was Maria who brought up sanitation. I mean, I hear that in Chelsea. Sanitation, you know, it's in addition to the litter baskets, which are littered themselves as they are all overflowing. There's not enough staff to clean them up on a regular basis. Also, the street cleaning is completely, it's not the way it was. And, you know, the collection service itself. I mean, we still have the routes, but the routes are attenuated. I think the routes are longer and longer. But particularly street sweeping, mechanical street sweeping. Now, I haven't seen anybody with brooms recently, except the, what's the name of the group that works for the BIDs, Jeffrey?
ACE, probably. The city works with them too.
The guys.
There's the Doe Fund also.
Yeah, the
The
Doe
what?
Fund and ACE.
Doe Fund, that's what I was thinking of, the Doe
Yep.
Fund. They still have brooms, but
Okay.
nobody else
Yeah.
does. Okay, I'll shut up. Go ahead.
Well, I want to just reflect. I want to keep going, and Sabrina, and then Christine. I'll just say that this, when I think back of the last year and the things that we heard most often from the community and at our meetings were the topics that seem to be bubbling up to the top right now. So this feels like a very natural evolution of priorities based on what we've heard, at least from my perch. But I do want to acknowledge Alan proposed moving education up. I know at the last ACES meeting, there was a discussion that there's a lot more funding going to the schools right now. And so the needs aren't as acute from a programmatic side, but perhaps on the capital side, there's still a lot to be done. I'm putting that out there, not to offer my opinion, but just as other people are going to speak, maybe can reflect on where they think education goes in this mix. And Bert, I'm just going to ask if you can take your hand down just so I can make sure I'm tracking people next. Jesse, do you want to jump in before I go to Sabrina?
I don't, well, I'll do very, I do and I don't. I don't want to mess, I want Sabrina and Christina at the moment. Just for clarity's sake, again, I forget who said it, I think Jeffrey and Alan or someone said it. Those words are all just pre-formatted. There's no way I can change affordable housing as in terms of our terminology, in terms of the top 3 requests. What we do after that in our descriptive narratives, we can do that. I will just say, as we have been doing for ever since I've been here, and I think even before that, obviously, is we don't just use words like affordable housing. We're using words like mixed income, mixed, socioeconomic mixture, right? So we're always wanting that large band, from very low income to middle and moderate. And so I just want to make that statement, not to say that we shouldn't change it, but I just want to say that using like our affordable housing plan and our previous documents, that's the kind of terminology we have always used. I do want to say a lot more, but I'll say it after Sabrina and Christine.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Sabrina.
So actually, the question to you, Jesse, so you can say that we can expand the affordable housing for middle income, moderate income, low income, middle and moderate income, so that we can do kind of brackets, so that way it includes more MII instead of just affordable housing for a specific type of group. Is that something that we could do? So to Leslie's point of expanding the MII to just one specific group of affordable housing for a specific criteria, can we expand it to also middle class or working class?
We do. I mean, just so we're clear, the argument, the sites that Leslie is talking about have been promised in a commitment from the administration, not this administration and not the previous administration, but an administration. No, that's true. Bloomberg administration. Made a commitment to make those middle and moderate. We use that language we use the middle and moderate language in our budgetary requests for those sites. We use the middle and moderate language in our letters. So it is throughout. We use it in our affordable housing plan. We don't, when we get both very granular in literally we're saying that site over there will produce X amount of units and we wanted to make it for middle and moderate between 80 AMI to 125 or 165. Like our affordable housing plan gets that granular. But I think I was just saying in our general description, when we say what we mean by affordable housing, when the board says that, we mean that wide range. So we always say it with the caveat of being that mix. We want that mix, and we don't want any donut holes in between.
Just one bracket. We want the 3 brackets. I think it's
Sure.
divided into 3 brackets.
We want the 3. We want, if you want to call them the 3 brackets, that's fine. Call it the 3 brackets, but they're all overlapping. So therefore, someone comes in and they're making 55, and they would get booted out of low income, but they wouldn't make it. They wouldn't make enough for middle, right? But we want those brackets to overlap each other. So, and that's always what we fight for. And that's language throughout all of our documents. So, but that was just my point to say that we get into that in other parts of the document.
That was just for the language purpose of that. So I agree. I think the land use trends, it's definitely not, I would argue that is not necessarily at this moment a particularly need based on the needs that we have. I do think that social services / public safety could be maybe one together. I don't know if that's a language that we can use, that we can kind of have the optics of safety would increase in social services in the neighborhood, and that would also tackle homelessness and drug use, and even like sanitation, because of all the syringe that we find in the streets. Could be a way of, that's very specific, but it just occurred to me. And I mean, I'm sort of torn between like not taking the traffic up or, the problem that we have with the air quality in our district and education. I agree with you, Jessica and Alan. I think it's, the impact of COVID-19 in our district for education has been wide, and that's sort of some of the testimonies and some of the data that we have gotten in ACEs. But I think it's also, but this goes back to our committee, where we have to really think and reflect, how can we have the bigger impact, knowing that there's more funding that is going to the DOE. But this is definitely a discussion that is good to have in our committee for folks who are in the that, and if we can bring the case of how we'll bring it into the budget, the 3 priorities. But that was just my suggestion.
Great. Thank you, Sabrina. Christine.
Yes, this is a very difficult year because we have all the things we needed before and all the problems we have now. And we have only 3 slots, which is just impossible. I mean, it's impossible. And at this stage, I don't know that I wouldn't feel comfortable personally to represent what everybody wants. I don't know what everybody wants. I also think that if we want to put something as a priority in the top 3, right, we should have in our mind some specific expenses or capital that we want to ask for that are going to become number 1 in our list of things, right? I mean, if we say, okay, education, this is what we want, and then we go in the list and, education is number 14. So we need to match those 2 things in a consistent way. But my thought was maybe, I think everybody is saying, very important things. My thought was maybe, Jesse, you take the categories, which are the official categories, and you circulate them between us as a survey. And we also circulate them to the public as a survey, just because, it's such a difficult year. It would make me very comfortable, much more comfortable to know what they are saying. And it doesnn't take, it's a 1-page survey, right? It's like, tell us, what are your top 3 priorities for the budget this year? That's it. It doesn't have to go in details. It doesn't have, so you get a sense of what the community wants. So that would be my preference as far as collecting what people are saying, where people feel like safety is important, where people feel like, homelessness. Last year we were on homelessness, but I think we have all these issues and are linked together, and it's very difficult to put one above the other. That's my thoughts.
Thank you. And sorry, Jesse, just before I'll turn to you in just a second. I was just going to say that Jesse and I had been emailing back and forth about doing a very simple survey as to what you're describing, Christine. I think one of the challenges, which I believe we're prepared to do, and so this discussion will help inform what that should look like. I think one of the challenges we saw in the last survey is people say, like, they may say their issue is a health and human service agency issue, right? That's the big broad bucket category they check, but then they say, trash on the street. And we know that those 2 things don't line up. And so one of, it's always with the data, right? It's never going to be perfect, but I do obviously think that it will be a helpful tool in directionally showing us what are people concerned about, and how do we help that? How do we use that to help make some of these hard decisions? Because as your comments started with, this is a very challenging thing to do, to prioritize some very, very concrete, specific needs that we know, all of us empirically know our district is experiencing. So we'll get to the survey. I'm going to ask Jesse to go, and then Alan and Leslie will follow.
I'll just very quickly say, so beyond, I know we're getting caught in we're talking about the top 3, and those are important. So, but if we look at the statement of district needs, it allows us to pick out one thing within all of the categories and highlight as an issue. And so, just as an example, historically, we've talked about public safety and policing. We have focused on traffic enforcement. And so obviously, if we are collectively saying public safety is a priority, then we would be looking at that description, that sub-description of what it is. So I just want to be clear, like, while there's the top 3, we're still commenting on each of the other categories. We can comment on each of the other categories. So it's not as though we don't get to say anything about NYPD in our statement of district needs at all, ever again, if we don't say NYPD, public safety is important. So I just want to be clear on that. And so,
That's a good one.
Yeah, so again, I know that's Christine, predominantly that's been Christine's thing, so I don't want to, I just want to be clear on that though. And
No, that's fine. I
Yeah.
think it's a very good point. If this year, what the safety issues are different, we need to describe them differently and do the traffic much smaller.
and there might be, and I'm sure there's those other subsections, human services, whatever it may be, homeless outreach, all those things. Those are where we're going to get I think what the changes that we make there will be important. Obviously, if we want to switch out one of the top three for something else, that's always significant as well. But those subsections are the one where you're going to really to get into there and into the meat of it. I just want to be clear. I just want to make sure we're cognizant of time. We're going to meet now, and then we typically meet like one big long meeting in October, right? To do kind of like the real kind of negotiations between all of the committees. Yeah, exactly, Jeffrey. And so usually we walk out of this meeting with some marching orders, with each of us taking on a responsibility of reviewing a section of the statement of district needs, breaking that up and delegating that out. So I just want to make sure we get to that and we do that so people sort of know what we're doing. So by next month, Jessica has a finalized edited version that she's reviewing and not chasing anybody down to make sure that, the arts section is up to date or the transportation section is up to date.
Thank you, Jesse, for that. I was actually just going to say, so as a reminder, again, if people have the document, if you look on page 12, that's the beginning of the summary of requests, and that starts with healthcare and human services. And so there are those various topics that we identify as key priorities, and then within that, each section is called out. And so it would seem to me that if you are a chair of a committee that's focused on these issues, that like this 1.5, it's in some cases 1 page or 1.5 pages, actually be brought back to the committee for discussion, or at least very close review by the chairs to really look and say, does this still reflect, does the content here still reflect our priorities, both from a macro and very specific with the requests that are being made? Are these the kinds of things we want to be prioritizing right now? And then as we go through, the Excel document and the very specific asks, we'll be able to line up and see and maybe reprioritize based on that. So I want to move. I don't want to leave Alan and looks like Leslie took her hand down, but and actually Christine and Jesse, if you guys can also take your hands down if you're done for right now. But I would like to be able to go through and make sure, as Jesse's saying, that each of these sections are covered. I'm also happy to divide them up myself based on what I know to be the topics people work on at their committees. But seeing as committee meetings are restarting for October, it would seem to me that actually really looking at the narrative would be, I think, a really meaningful discussion at the committee level. Okay, Alan. Yeah.
So at that big October meeting, Christine brings the chocolates. But
virtual chocolates.
Right.
That's true. No chocolate. Terrible.
What Jesse was saying, at the end of the day, doesn't matter what 3 priorities go on the front page. Well, we could put education on the top, and as Christine said, we can do 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 requests, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 will get needs new study, can't fund right now, no priority. So going back, I just want to see, education I think is a little bit different than transportation or the other committees, because you go to one agency, you go to DOT, you go to DSNY. I think in our last responses, a good 75% of what we requested, or maybe even more, were turned down. However, the borough president's office and the district council and the councilman's office have been funding tech support, lab support, all kinds of stuff gets funded through, especially the borough president's office. So I'm not a conspiratorialist, conspiratorialist. But it seems to me that DOE has shifted their obligations probably to the borough president's office and hopefully to the district council office. So I think, and now in terms of the monies that the principals are getting now, they're going to be doing a lot of their own funding. So what is education going to be about in our district? We have one of the highest rates of segregated schools. We have one of the highest rates of kids in the shelter programs going to school. There are more policy issues, I think, that maybe we could deal with, and we'll take this up at committee perhaps, but we keep asking for this stuff, and I know it happens to other committees too, but when you ask DOE for Chromebooks and they tell you, well, if we get the funding for it, we'll look into it and do a study and blah, 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 that kind of stuff. And then the borough president's office is funding 256, or somebody else funded 256 Chromebooks for a high school. So I think in education, we can take up our priorities on page 14, in that narrative that you were speaking about in terms of what our priorities are.
Great, thank you, Alan. And just so you're not too depressed, at our last HHHS meeting, I mean, Joe spoke about some things have been on the list for 20 years, and I wouldn't know that because I haven't been working on these issues, but he said, you just got to keep pressing through and these things do get done. So, don't despair too much. Okay, Dolores.
So I really think that the idea of having the survey out there is going to help us a lot. And Jessica, I love that you're asking for us to go back to committees with the very specific ask. Okay, these were your top buckets. I did want to respond to Alan about, does it really matter what we put as our top three? I think the narrative is extremely important, even if we're not getting the right answers from these agencies. And I think unlike in previous years, where as Jessica just mentioned, we're continuing the asks of over a long period of time, where we're telling the story of how we're trying to develop the neighborhood. Christine said it, the issues are different in these past 2 years. And so I think that we need to hit what's really critical and really visible at the moment. And while I agree with you, education overall needs a lot of help, and that's citywide, I still think that, as Maria outlined, we are hearing consistently from folks across the district of concerns of safety, of social services, and as also Maria outlined, and the sanitation. And I think that if we stray too much from what in the moment we are stating as what the district really needs, I think that we lose a lot of the support from the broader community in making sure to know, or in knowing that we've got their back. We can still, under every agency, make all the requests and continue to make the points, but I think that we need to stay connected to what the community's feeling in the moment, even though it's a future budget.
Thank you, Dolores. Leslie.
I agree with Dolores, and I'll make this very quick. I was in the unique position of talking to voters and people in the district in the last few months. And I got to tell you, it was, even cold calling or anything, it was unbelievable how many people, public safety, it was a landslide on what the concerns or from different people in our district. And Bert is right. It was kind of across the district, though, yes, it was concentrated up here, but even down there, people were like public safety. And it was, I would say, maybe 1 out of 10 would say something different, maybe, but public safety was so overwhelming. And sanitation, actually, to Maria's point, was up there as well. And take that for what that's worth. And I don't know if we're going to do exactly, we hear them and then just, plop it down the paper or go back to committee and kind of a little more nuanced with it. But, that's up to this group, but that's what we were hearing. And I do think it's important to reflect those concerns.
Thank you, Leslie. Okay, I'd like to, we have in the section that is summary of community district needs and budget requests, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sections, it looks like. And I just want to make sure if if everybody's comfortable reviewing the section that is most relevant to them, I just want to make sure that every section is covered. And so I'm just going to go down the list here. And I'm honestly, I'm just looking at the index for the on page, what is it here? Page at the top, the table of contents. So we have healthcare and human services. Maria, you'll be sure to review that. Great. Youth education and child welfare. Okay, Alan. Public safety and emergency services. This
So
is
maybe we have Dolores and myself doing that. What about
Yeah,
that?
I was gonna say, Christine, you traditionally do that, but I'm happy to.
Yeah, we should do that together.
Wonderful.
Okay.
great. Thank you. Core infrastructure, city services, and resiliency.
Bert, I feel like you've done that before.
You can look, I'm just going to go back through and look at some of the requests that are under there.
Shouldn't resiliency be parks? Nobody's parks.
Jeffrey will be. part.
Jeffrey,
I feel like
too.
I end up with park, that under this,
Bert
which is
usually
fine.
ends up with this core services.
I think we usually split it, right? It's kind of a,
Yeah, we'll work it out.
Okay, great. Sorry, I just lost my place here. Sorry, bear with me.
the next one's housing, economic development, and land use.
Thank you. Is that similarly Maria and
Sabrina is raising her hand.
Sabrina? Great. To the extent we want to bring that back to a specific committee, is that something, Maria, you think that can be brought back to the committee for discussion?
I'm not sure. I would have to look at it. My
Traditionally-
assumption was it would be housing, health, human services, and land use.
Traditionally, it's gone to both land uses, and land use hasn't always opined until the last previous year. Chelsea land use had a few items, but it's gone to both HHS and land use.
Okay. And Sabrina, are you comfortable working with both? Oh, sorry, Jesse.
I was just gonna say, just remember, I mean, if you guys do want to bring it back to land use, bring it back to committees and all of that, that's fine. This is just separate from the budget items, just to be.
Yep.
So, I mean, historically, you guys have not done that. It's a lot to ask. I think the committee will have each of their committees will have their hand filled with the budget requests. So I just wanted to float it, but that.
Just want to make sure the chairs feel that the narrative that's being put out reflects the nature of the discussion happening at the committee level. If it feels like it all lines up and it's perfect, I wouldn't feel the need to go back to committee to start wordsmithing or even changing priorities, but I just want to make sure that there's that closed loop and touchstone between the two.
I agree with you there. I think the chairs need to be comfortable with the language of the narrative. That's a smart move.
Okay, so Sabrina, I think it's great that you want to dig in, and if you would work with Maria, and we'll check in with someone, maybe Betty or Paul on land use, just to make sure that what's being discussed there, put out there feels right. And Alan, you wanted to?
Yeah, I just want to know, does this need to go back to committee if we want, or can it be floated around by email? Discussion.
It's not a vote.
It matters
Not
how
the
you
request, but the narrative. I'm talking about the
the
narrative.
narrative. My suggestion is that the narrative you make, you can have the original narrative, you have your edited version with either in track changes or whatever. You could send that to the co-chairs and say, this is what we are thinking of making proposed changes to the statement of district needs that will be voted on at the next budget task force. Does this make sense for you? Does this work? You're not asking for a vote. It's not a public conversation. I think that's fine. If you're looking for a full committee conversation, then you're talking about having to not do it over email.
Right, no, just to share it by, let's say, the education group, there might be some input that we might want from them. Could we just float that around by email as a draft and then bring it bring it back to the committee.
Yeah, I would have to look at the numbers of the education group and see if technically you're going into committee business with a quorum. I would have to look at that. So maybe,
Okay. All right.
maybe
Let me know.
Okay, the next, I think we have transportation. So Christine,
I'll take that.
great. And then I think last is parks, cultural, and other community facilities. Jeffrey, you're nodding. And I would say, Alan, just given the ACEs overlap there, if you can also take a look. So I think, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, go on. I just wanted to make sure everybody actually got access. I don't think I got Sabrina access yet. But I know it was a little clunky to get in, but I want to make sure everybody I made it.
Can you send it again to me? I can't find it right now.
All right, I'll resend it to everybody. It's a Microsoft 365 cloud. I turned it into the PDF back into a Word doc, and so then I try to share with as many people as possible. I think some of you got it.
Isn't it the FY 2021 city priorities form? Isn't it the whole thing that it was on the?
It's a Word document. It says FY22. It's not FY21. It's FY22.
Okay. Yeah.
The statement of district needs FY22.
Aren't we based it on the last year? So it wouldn't be a very similar document? Oh, I guess, yeah, if you can resend it, that'd be great.
Exactly this. All it is last year's document.
Yeah. Exactly.
I just want to be able to do it one central location that everybody makes their changes to. I put track changes to it, so you guys can make as many changes as you want and not worry about it being, you lose track of it. So I will resend it to everybody or re-up everybody's access to
please.
it.
I think just as an FYI, I know for me, it requires a code to be sent. It's authenticated. It requires a code, and it kept going to my spam and Gmail. So just if you aren't getting the code, check your spam. So that's separate from the email that he sent. But if you aren't able to get in, that could be why.
I only do it this way because I remember people not liking, I guess, Gmail or Google Docs. I was trying to find one way of having one central document. So if we want to do it a different way, it's fine. If people would rather send Jessica and me
I'm happy to work on edits. If people do it, copy their version out in Word and send it to me if that's easier. But use track so we know what changes you made, please.
Jessica and Jesse, what's the timeline for the statement of district needs edits?
So I was actually going to say, I think I need to kind of work this through this afternoon and get back to everyone on that. But to work backwards, and Jesse, please just correct me if I'm wrong here, but this will be brought to exec on October 25th. Is that right? In preparation for the board, which is November 3rd. So,
So, historically we have, you provide a report. I think rarely are we all, all ready to go.
Totally buttoned up.
It's all wrapped up by exec, because the reality is the committee schedule for the weeks prior don't give you guys any room to get it done. So I think we could certainly have a meeting like we are doing now at 5 before exec, but I really think you'll have to have a meeting post exec with where the real fight happens, because you're going to need the time, especially I think with the changes we're making. But I think at exec you're discussing the big shifts that you guys are talking about currently.
When does it have to go to the full board?
It has to go to the full board the following week. So that's
So this big fight meeting you're talking about is between the exec and the full board?
It's between the exec and the full board. So the 26th, 27th, 28th. We want to leave enough time for Jessica and I to, clean it up and get it ready for, viewing eyes.
Okay.
So, usually maybe the 26th or 27th for the following meeting. And if you guys are up for a meeting before exec, if you want, but that's because we usually have capital and expense. We go through we go through both capital and expense. Capital is typically shorter, usually faster. Expense is where we get, really into it.
Any chance we could send out a survey as simple and similar to last year's? so that at least it could be announced at full board
Yep.
coming up?
We can put that together. I'll send a draft to Jessica. If we're thinking those top major items, right?
Yeah.
As just being, you know, do we want to give people priority, like just one? They get a choice of just one.
No, they have the choice of three.
The choice of three. So
One
we're
to
asking
three.
them for three.
Right.
Okay.
And then do we want to just have a question that says to define for them what that means?
Yeah, I think it would be helpful under each to have like a little sentence saying, you know, for example, blah, 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 right?
That I will just say the data crunching on written.
No, I'm saying we give them an example. They don't have to answer, just to clarify the category.
Oh, sure. But I think
Right.
Jessica's asking whether we want to do a second question after that. That's sort of more open-ended, I think, right?
No,
Well,
you
Jesse,
don't.
last year we had a comments field at the bottom where people could expand, if I recall. And that's where Jessica was mentioning it, the mismatch, where they listed the priorities, but they wrote down different things. It did still reveal something. And I think that may be something we look out. We maybe don't, obviously the data won't match, but I think it's revealing and it's helpful.
But
to just get-
also we have tools now, because we can take just a comment and pour all that stuff into a spreadsheet and do a word cloud.
Yeah.
And
I
so
think it may
you have
not-
a tool now to do something with that, you know, which is a little more productive.
Okay.
Hey, guys, I have to hop off, but I have curriculum night for third grade. So I'll see you in a half hour.
Good luck.
Okay, bye-bye. Sorry.
Okay, so I think we're acknowledging that the first question, the three priorities, that's really what's going to help shape this assignment that's before us right now, and be most relevant for that. We will ask this additional question, more of a comments-driven, open-ended question that we can just use to shape our committee work and our understanding of the issues that people are referring to, as separate from maybe this specific assignment. Jesse, just picking up on what you were saying, like the narrative can also be very messy and, you know, less instructive for trying to make priorities happen for the budget. So, okay, do we want to use this time to start reviewing? Is it helpful to start reviewing the responses back on capital and expense? Is that something that anybody has done already in committee and has feedback based on those discussions?
I think what would be maybe useful is to review those things and say which one are done. If anything is done, let's, you know, remove it.
Okay, so let's, great. I think there's also, at least there was some discussion at an earlier committee meeting this past week, like what is, you know, there are suggestions that things will be accommodated, and what does that really mean? And what does it mean for the further prioritization of that topic if we don't feel it's been resolved? I know that it sounds like the battle is typically a little bit more over expense. Is that? Oh, well, we'll start with capital. Fine.
Yeah, there's just more expense. They allow you more expense requests, and so.
Great. So the first three here are all housing related.
Wait, I have capital requests in front of me. Say fund the purchase, distribution, or remote learning.
Yeah, no, the first one is
excuse me. Sorry. Thank you.
I'm sorry, am I looking at expense or capital right now?
capital.
Thank you.
There's capital at the bottom.
It's on the screen too, guys.
Yeah, it's on the screen.
Yeah, it's too tiny on my screen. I'm on my cell phone, so I'll look at my computer.
Oh, on cell
No,
phone.
oh, no.
Okay,
Right.
so this is, you know, Alan, I think we'll turn to you. This is something that I know they were very vocal about, and according to the response, as the response has been accommodated, I think this is a question if you don't feel it's been sufficiently accommodated.
Well, they say this will be accommodated. Well, this was part of the whole home, you know,
Yeah.
thing. So I think we've passed on this already. The back to school, there is a little bit of a hybrid, possibly, if anyone, I think DOE and SEA can handle any new devices that they need. And then you have the funding that's gone into the schools now, so the principals can maybe take care of their own needs in terms of they need a couple of devices. Because
Great, so we will remove this.
sure,
You win.
Let me ask a question, which is how, it was left that the very disadvantaged children or homeless families didn't have the tools. Question is, do we know that that they are now, if we restrict the focus on that, do they now have the tools for those children?
well, I think the response that we've gotten, and Jesse might know better, the response that we've gotten from DOE and what you read in the media is that DOE is on top of this at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, DOE has announced that they were able to give every child that needed it a tablet. I think the struggle then was for particularly children in shelter was Wi-Fi access, and things like that, and just space to do this classes and not be doubled up in a hotel room. So I think that was really it. So this was really focusing on the devices. So I think we can consider it a removal and a win.
Yeah, and I think that access for shelters can be something that we'll put in the narrative.
Right. So I was going to mention, as
continuation.
Jeffrey had implemented, when we discuss wins, we thank people, but we also can add the narrative to say we still want to ensure that for those in specific situations that we're still on top of it, that type of thing. So.
Okay. What's number 2?
Got it. 2 is NYCHA related, adequate subsidy for HBD development at Harborview, and saying that this request follows a different budget process. We know there's obviously the NYCHA working group. Maria, I'm not sure. Oh, Dolores, go ahead.
Well, Harborview is still a huge priority. And I think that, we'll probably have to figure out where it falls on the list with our other concerns, but it's still a work in progress.
Yeah, and the NYCHA working group is, my understanding is regarding downtown, Fulton and Elliott, Chelsea, not Harborview.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll just note, this is not the only request for Harborview in the capital budget. It is just the first request.
Yeah, I think if we are going to change our large scale priorities, I mean, affordable housing will stay as one up there, then this should be,
It should remain.
stick around in the higher and in the top, top 5, top 10 area. But there are other capital requests for Harborview.
Does this, I'm just curious though, this response from OMB,
yeah, I mean, this is a little bit
require that we change our narrative to get a different kind of response?
I wouldn't, because we're never going to get one. So OMB, OMB is going to say this is not a budget issue because basically they've never made they haven't made a deal yet. I mean, this is a little bit of us. This is where we use this document as a little bit of a political, tool as well, in that we are saying, we want capital. We worded it into a budget request, but OMB is always going to say it's sort of, this is all an RFP process and not a budget request. But we think it should be, because until they fully fund it, subsidize it, right now they want the project to pay for all of the capital fund needs for Harborview. Therefore, it's got to be market rate. So that's going to be the kind of the political argument.
Okay, so we will keep it. Moving to number 3 is also, this is the elevators. Last year we added this information, I think, about the outages.
Can I just ask a quick question, Jessica or Jesse? I can't remember. So I was looking at, there's one of the requests for capital is like moderate and middle income units. It's related to the DEP site and the MTA site. Mm-hmm. But it says continued support. I forgot what that means.
Well, we moved it to continued support because we were under the impression that the RFP went out. So the RFP went out for middle and moderate, and therefore we were expecting the responses to that RFP to be for middle and moderate. And what ended up happening was the administration decided to change the parameters of the RFP without any consultation from the community and make them very low income, and one is completely a supportive, not completely, but a supportive housing project, and the other one is very low income. So I think we're going to have to readjust those from no longer from continued to support, probably need to moving those up. If we were going to continue the trend,
I would ask that it be moved to number 3 or somewhere
We're
else.
changing the numbers right now.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're
we're
not
not doing
changing the
numbers, we're
Okay,
just
sorry.
identifying
We're
wins.
just trying to
I'm
keep
jumping
up
again.
the place.
Nice try, Maria.
Sorry,
Nice
That's
try.
right.
Well, Maria is right. Maria's right, but that's not what we're doing now.
well, I'll mark it in my notes that clearly it's not staying in continued support, and we'll have the fight in October.
Okay, are we in agreement that 3, which is the elevators, I mean, it does say the responses that it should be brought to our electeds, but that we will continue to place this as a priority?
Yeah.
Jesse, if you can provide some clarity in terms of where the city is on those 2 sites in terms of RAF, if that impacts it at all, because I think that may change our language.
Yeah, I mean, I would ask, I'm going to probably defer to Joe a little bit on this in terms of what this was. This really came, Bert actually, if Bert's on, Bert raised this, I think my memory serves, because we have it both in capital and expense because of his experience with the staffing issue, right? And so there's this there's similar to the parks problem, where it's like we want them to build comfort stations, but so they can have full-time staff, and but we can't have full-time staff until they build comfort stations. So so it's sort of the same thing where we're saying that we need to fund the people to fix the elevators so the elevators can be fixed, but we also need to fund the fixing of the elevators. So I'm happy to follow up with Bert and Joe.
It's still an expense issue.
I'm sorry.
And it is in both budgets.
It's still an expense issue.
It is in both.
Yeah, it's in both.
Right. There's a staffing issue, and then there's a capital improvement issue.
Okay, I'm gonna have us move on to construct new and pedestrian ramp.
Yeah, not done. Next.
Okay, just I want to note, it says includes a citywide allocation. The adopted budget does include an allocation for this work. So do we think there's money for this? It just hasn't
Yeah,
made it.
there has to be money because there was a lawsuit and the city lost and they have to do it. So there has to be money,
Okay, so I guess we'll just keep using the word fulfill, as it says there, fulfill the city's commitment.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a request around lending libraries.
Well, DOE has kicked it down the road to our local officials. So I don't know if it pays to ask them for the same thing all over again and get the same answer. So maybe it's something, maybe we could do a side letter at some point to the borough president's office or district council at some point.
But Alan, the question is that is it done or not? Did you get anything? Did you get any result?
I have no idea. We reached out to the borough president's office and to district council for what they funded, and lending libraries was not on the list. So this was
not done.
Right.
Done.
We'll keep that. Okay.
But the point is, do you keep it here or do you go after the borough president's office?
Well, right now we are not. We are just trying to figure what's done and not done here.
Oh, okay, I got you. Okay.
Right.
I would just say this again. This is one of these things came out of when we were all remote.
COVID.
The COVID stuff.
Came out of COVID remote. So I think maybe, while it may not be a success, it might not be the same need as since we're all back.
Not done, but not still a priority of the same significance.
Right.
Okay, this says that the next request is for new homeless shelters. And it says establishing a standard family with children shelter that can provide a robust level of on-site services. And it says this request has been funded.
So
Maria.
as far as I know, there is a family shelter coming to the district. So I'm curious if we should be removing it, and they also reduced the number of, there was something else that it said about the number of the hotel shelters. So I was thinking we might be able to remove this.
Okay.
I mean, they responded, but I do think we need to add language just to at least highlight some of
Well, we
them.
should put continuing support, right? That should go in continuing support.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not, I wasn't sure if it should go in continuing
Yeah.
support or be removed. Okay.
And this might be, maybe Dolores, what you were saying, whether it's a thank you or more of an acknowledgement that they'll need to continue to engage with the community as they implement these plans as a way of acknowledging their progress on this topic. Okay, then we have the.
That's a big, if that's real, that's a big win for us.
Yeah, yeah.
I can,
yeah,
excuse me real quick. Can I just change, I can change some of the language in that request, right?
Yeah, no, we need to update it. We need to update the language.
Okay.
They're no
Thank you.
longer, we're not, the temporary shelters are no longer there, clearly.
Okay.
But I think we do want to hold on considering it a win, and thank you until we really meet with the developer and the provider and sort of work things out, which we will be doing shortly.
Okay. I think
So
we
we
can
leave it there or move it?
This one was done. Didn't you notice?
Call the number.
Do we leave it there or move it to continued support? I'm confused.
We'll move it to continued support and update it. We're not moving, I'm not physically moving it right now, but yes,
Thank
we'll
you,
move it to continued support.
Okay.
Okay, Christine, what any changes to?
Not
number 7?
done, not done.
So keep it as is
Yeah.
in terms of the language. Okay. It appears number 8 has also not been done. No, okay, so we'll keep that as is.
Yeah.
Number 9, is this our big win? Done.
Scratch that out.
Are there any needs for, is there anything that requires our attention on like something related to this matter going forward, or it's like meeting?
I would say, it's only a temporary layout there. And they have to go forward with the fulfillment of a plan. They have to plan a permanent park, which they have not done.
What we need to figure out is the Hudson River Park Trust is not issuing the RFP right now, which would allow for up to 50% of the pier to be developed for commercial purposes to fund the park. Until they issue an RFP, we have nothing to respond to, number one. Number two, what we should think about is, do we want to entertain the idea of development? Because that's how the park is written, how the act is written to pay for the park at this pier, in a way. Or is it time to start thinking about ways to go back to the drawing board and think about other funding streams for Hudson River Park? There were a number of models passed around when we were working on this pre-pandemic, actually. Alan, you were at those meetings. And there were models where 20% made sense. So it makes me nervous to take it out fully because yes, we removed the tow pound, but there's gonna be things that we have to do as it relates to Pier 76 going down the pike.
But Jeffrey, this is specifically to the NYPD agency, and so they've agreed to move. And I think that's the reason why we take it out. We can add commentary about, but it's not related to the budget for this agency. And that's the only thing I think it might get confused with the bigger question that we really need to tackle on how to think about that pier.
I think this has to go back to committee, Jeffrey, and you guys have to come up, answer the questions that you just put out.
Yep.
Because,
I think the question.
Well, I mean, go ahead, Alan,
I'm sorry. I think the question is, at this point, is kind of moot because from what I recall, the trust isn't ready to do anything on this pier for a long, long time in terms of a rebuild and then putting out, you said, the RFPs for some kind of development on it. So we can certainly do something as an ask in terms of when, time frame, or something like that, maybe something like that, see what they want to do. But
Yeah.
it sounded to me that they're not going to think about this pier for a long time.
The factor is NYPD still needs to pick a spot in Manhattan. And we long positioned ourselves as being a neighborhood that is willing to reaccommodate a municipal need within our community. It's a question of location. So while it's a delight to have 76 without a tow pound, you know, we have a list of sites that we did recommend of where the tow pound should end up. So I'm worried about that coming, you know, sort of roaring back to us at some point, and us being caught flat-footed. I think, Dolores, though, you're right. I was getting too far in my head with myself, and it can completely come out of here as it relates to it got relocated.
Yeah.
But board positioning wise, it's something we should be ready for.
Yeah, I just, when I spoke too quickly, I just didn't realize the process, and that Hudson River Park Trust is just not there yet. No one wants to do anything yet for a while.
They have to rebuild the pier.
Yeah, I don't think we are,
Am I
we
right?
are there on that discussion. I mean, you know, as Jesse said, this is a long discussion in the committee.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, let's move on. We have Harbor View again, of prioritizing these very specific capital requests, with the response being bring it to our electeds and can't be funded.
Can I just make, we're setting up a budget consult with the TAs from all of the NYCHA developments, I think, with Maria and myself and whoever I think Maria chooses as well. I think we can just, if it's all right with Maria, why don't we table these until we get feedback from them as to whether we should be taking this. They're going to say everything that's not a boiler and a roof, NYCHA is going to say, go to your elected officials. That's the fact. Boiler, roof, and pieces of facade falling off the building are the only things that the NYCHA capital plan are really focused on. So I think we should not go with the answers, because the answers are going to be, you know, boilerplate, and we'll get better clarity as to what we really should be fine tuning our requests to.
Right. Interesting that the security cameras do refer as being accommodated. But maybe based on the feedback from the TAs, we can adjust, like, let's get their feedback on each of these, on what's actually happening. And then maybe we even change the language accordingly, so that they can respond to the things that they can respond to, and then kick the can on the things they can't. But then that takes us down to 13, which is the resurfacing of the bike lane.
No, that wasn't done.
Okay, so we'll keep that. And then, Alan, if you can work on getting an update on, unless you already have, on 14, seeing as it says that the request will be accommodated in part for security cameras at those following schools.
We'll check with the principals.
Great. Chelsea Park. Isn't some of this is, it says here this cannot be accommodated, but don't we know that this is happening?
I'm following on the screen and we're not there yet, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I don't know if my lapsed or everyone talked at the same time. Jeffrey, say that again.
Jessica, are you thinking of Chelsea Waterside Park?
I thought there was an email and someone asked, I think Christine, you asked, they were using turf. I thought it was this location, and Jeffrey, you said this is a win because this is better than. Oh,
you're right. I think, yes, I'm looking now, but I think that's true because they're segmenting it, because this is different than the workout stuff at Chelsea Park that they were basically just doing a coat of paint over.
So this is the field and running, right?
Yeah, the track.
So we need an update. Let's put it this way.
Okay, we can also go back. There is, I know there was money, or I seem to recall there was money moved here.
elevator.
Columbus.
Oh,
Branch
Yeah,
River.
Jessica, sorry, in your July 20th email, I absolutely did write back that that is a win, that we got $1 million to expand and enhance the Chelsea Waterside, it replaced the synthetic turf field and track at Chelsea Park. So we got $1,028,000 for that. So that's a
Wow.
win.
Okay, win.
Okay. Is it unusual? I just have to ask Jesse, is it unusual to get money, but then also have them say that they can't give money? Like, is that a,
I need to look, what I'll need to do is look back at the first preliminary response that the Parks gave, which is usually a little more detailed. And then I need to check with that list that Parks sent us recently, Jeffrey, as to their requests. And maybe that'll probably bring a little more understanding of this response.
okay. Thank you.
I wonder if it was speakers money or something too.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
capital, so it could have been speakers money.
I can answer number 16. This makes so little sense to me. I just got the budget priority requests from the library. Library is one of the few organizations that actually send us, like, please support this specific project. All of it's for Muhlenberg. None of it's for Columbus. I have no understanding of why that is. And so I'm following up with them. But for right now, I'd like us to keep it because Muhlenberg has been getting priority for years, and Columbus, his project just keeps on bigger and getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and seemingly not a priority of the libraries, which I don't understand.
Okay, thank you. This is, the next one is around ferry.
Win. Yeah.
We don't have it.
Well, it's not going to Brooklyn. It's just the wrong destination.
Correct. It's a question of like continuing support, or like, to me, it needs to stay because we're asking for expanded service.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Great.
So
That's crazy.
we'll keep it. A
We'll
Packer
update
truck.
the language. though,
Update
right?
the language. Yep.
New equipment for parks. We keeping that?
Did they get their trucks?
Mm-mm.
Did they, Jeffrey?
I think so.
Remember
I
their
thought they
answer.
got one.
I've seen a new truck with a backlift floating around 10th Avenue around 10 o'clock Moore Park a few times.
I think they said yes, right, Jeffrey? Remember, I think Paul said at the end of between Paul and Steve, they both said yes, right?
That they
So
did
let's
get
put
it. But
yes, question
why
mark.
isn't it on our list then, Jesse? That
Well, that's two things, maybe, as you said, additional money. Also, the city budget wound up being a lot bigger than maybe when these,
that's true. In the initial round, it got it got bigger after.
yeah. I still think it's kind of weird that the agencies wouldn't have updated this, but there was a lot more money in the end than was anticipated. Resurfacing of the dog run.
Do it, Clinton. That needs to stay. They're resisting us on that.
Okay. And the basketball courts at Penn South.
Also needs to stay. Jesse, didn't they specifically ask for that in the call?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
We need to update the amount though, right? I think, or
this is $1 million.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Christine, this says the agency will try to accommodate.
Yeah, this is staying. They have a commitment to do that. That should stay, but I need to go back and verify how many they did or not.
Okay.
But I know they didn't do all of them, so.
Okay. And Alan,
22. I think in 21, Corey's office funded about $70,000 towards science lab, so we have to follow up on this.
Yeah, I think this was funded.
Great.
Or at least partially. They may not have gotten all the money they wanted, but they did fund for science labs, I think in 21. So we'll check it.
Great.
Finally, some bathroom.
I know.
I was dying to talk about bathrooms.
Well, here you go.
None of them. They all stay.
They didn't do any?
None.
Oh. It has to be a better way.
You're right, Christine. The cost is just insane. It's procurement. The procurement is a major part of the problem.
5 minutes to exec.
Yeah.
Okay, just scanning down,
Bathroom.
none appear to have been funded. Does anyone see anything that looks to them
Well,
like?
Computer and Media Lab, didn't we get some money from the elected officials,
It's Brad's money. I got to follow up.
right? Yeah,
Yeah. That whole process got shut down because of COVID. I don't know where. it is.
really? Oh, God.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to find it out. I mean, it's just,
Oh.
you know,
Do you want me to reach out to Maya on that?
yeah.
Or is there more, or it's just that one?
There was
There were three
There was
recommendations.
great. Exactly.
So I can follow up with Maya.
That'd be great.
Okay. They
Alrighty.
don't, I'll just, yeah, we'll let everyone have a quick bathroom break, get water, but it looks, I mean, I'm okay ending to give people that time, but if there's anything that people see on the list that they think has been funded, please let us know so we can investigate it more closely. And certainly if anyone can look at continuing support issues that either need to be reworded or moved up in some way to not be continued support.
So this one is as updated, it's accessible where? What you just updated?
Jesse, where were you making those?
Well, I did not make this a universal one. So
Okay.
it should, they are in your, that is in your Dropbox. Jeffrey was right. For some reason, the statement of district needs was not in the Dropbox. I just put it in, so it's all in there. But the Excel spreadsheets.
I thought I was really losing it.
No, the Excel, you're not losing them. The Excel spreadsheets for both capital and expense are separated in the Dropbox for this.
So what I'm saying is that Jessica just updated things. Can we get an update?
Jesse just updated.
Oh, I updated them. You want me to send that around?
Yeah.
I think maybe
Okay,
Jesse
yeah, that's
replace
fine.
the sheet that's in the Dropbox with what
Yeah.
you just did,
Right,
just so we
right.
have those couple of notes.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
Sounds good. That's fine. I'll do that.
So, and Jessica, you're going to get back to us with a timeline on deadline, and we're getting out a survey. So I think we're in good shape.
Yeah, and then everybody can start. I'll try to re-up everybody's access, whoever doesn't have it. Please let me know if you don't get it. Check your spam, I guess. It's unfortunate. And again, if there's another way you want to do it, that's fine. I mean, just like Jessica said, the track changes are the most important thing.
Thank
Great.
So
Does
keep
Lev-
an eye for.
Does Lev get to go to exec?
Bathroom break and water. Bye.
Jeffrey, before you log off,
You want me to call you?
no, I just need you to run exec. I will
Okay.
cover the
Thanks,
redistrict.
everyone.
Bye. Thanks, Jessica.
Jeff,
Yep, I'm here.
I'll cover the redistricting issue, but I need you to chair exec.
Yep, that's fine.
All right, thanks.
See you in a few. Jesse, do you have, is there anything? It's all updates. There's no technical business, right?
No, there's no votes. I mean, no, I'm going to have things to vote on. I'm going to need hold on. Let me call you. We're technically.
Okay, call me. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Bye.
Bye.